Do you have some of that popcorn?
Hey.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. How's your daughter?
She's doing great. I just got off the phone with Mr. Seeloff for her parent-teacher conference.
Very good. Good.
Yeah.
How was the virtual conference?
It was great. It was good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I missed my manila folder though with all my paperwork.
You know, yeah, we missed. Well, you're going to get some in the mail. It just won't be all of the things.
Yeah, no worries. Totally joking. I have so many folders, so many papers. The electronic is totally fine.
Yeah, I'm sure that won't be our number one concern is we wanted the manila folder, but you will get something in the mail.
All right.
But it won't be as thick and it won't be as heavy.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Well, here comes Scott. All right, got a few people joining us. We'll give it a few minutes here. Hi, Scott. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today.
Sure.
Josh, I think I'll give it to like 4:03. I do want to start relatively close to on time, but just with getting online and stuff, I think we'll give it a couple minutes here before we start sharing. All right, it's 4:03. I think we'll get going with the folks that are here. Small crowd, but always exciting to get folks on with us. And I'm sure we'll have a few other people join us later on as well. Last time we had a number that couldn't make it on right at 4, but got on shortly thereafter. So just want to welcome everyone to our second School Accountability Committee meeting of the year. We had one just a little over a month ago, and these will typically be run about quarterly is how we'll use them, as just kind of those quarterly checkpoints in on the school. And so this December one, the reason it's so recent since the other one is to kind of get us back on a normal cadence that we'll use, with the next one being in March and then a final one for the school year being in June. Would love a chance just for everyone to go around and introduce themselves real quick of who's here. If you're a parent or a community member, just naming who your student is or your affiliation with the school would be really helpful. But I will start and then turn it to Josh, and then I'll just call on others to share a little bit, and then we'll get moving with the presentation. But John Clark, and I'm the director at the middle school. I've been with DSST this is my 10th year now, and this is my first year as the director at Montview. Although I in my beginning of my time at DSST, I was a teacher at Montview as well as an associate director for a year. So it's been really good to get back to my roots. I spent a bit of time with actually Josh here in between there, opening and working at Conservatory Green Middle School, and both of us found our way back to Montview, and we're excited to be there. So I'll turn it to Josh, and then Josh, I'll call on some others to introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, I know some of you on this call, and maybe not everyone. My name is Josh Hugo. I am at the high school. I'm our associate school director this year. It's my third year at Montview High School. It's my 11th year in the network. I too actually started at Montview Middle School in 2009, and then have traveled around the northeast part of Denver through DSST at Green Valley Ranch for 4 years and Conservatory Green for 4 years, and then Montview High School for the last 3. Mostly serving teacher initially in the last eight or so, 9 years maybe, as an administrator, dean, associate director, acting director last year at the high school, and associate director this year. So grateful to be here. Looking forward to seeing you all. And yeah, it would be great to see you if you can. Face to the name. So it looks like Scott, next introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So my name's Scott Pelster, and I have a daughter who is a junior at DSST. Her name's Ava Pelster, and I also have my older daughter actually graduated from Montview last year, and she's a freshman at CU Boulder, and she actually is having her first final today, her first college final today. So it was in physics. She said it went pretty well. So she has another one tonight and a couple this weekend. So anyway, yeah, so that's me.
Is she at the house taking the final? Is that where it's at?
Yeah. Lily. Yeah, her name's the freshman at CU. Yeah, her name's Lily. She's taking the finals here at home, and they actually just announced today that they're not going back until February.
Yeah.
The CU students, they were supposed to go back mid-January, but now that's been delayed till mid-February.
Right. Well, thanks, Scott, and thanks for being here. Casey, maybe we could go to you to have you introduce yourself. Your mic's on mute still. You'll need to unmute.
Telling you, I am struggling today. It's the end of the day. Anyways, my name's Casey Martinez, and I have a 6th grader at DSST.
Excellent.
Daughter.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. And Sharnetta, if we could ask you to get off the mic and share a little bit.
Hi, Sharnetta Lewis. I had 2 students graduate from DSST High School in 2013 and 2014, and I currently have a daughter, Alexandria Lewis, that's a 10th grader in the DSST High School.
Awesome. Thanks for being with here. And Leo, I think I see you down there. I know you're doing a bunch of stuff right now, but if you can hear us and want to share, that'd be great to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm just stuffing envelopes and waiting to help with a parent-teacher conference. But I'm the front office manager at the middle school for my second and a half year, I believe. And I have a student who is graduating college in December, but did not attend DSST, but he's on the East Coast, but he's excited to be done with college. So very nice to see you all.
Thanks for being here, Leo. And I'm sure Leo might have to jump out to do some translating for some of our conferences, but hopefully we'll see him around, and he's a great resource to answer questions we might have as well. So I'm going to share the presentation that Josh and I will be working from here right now. One thing I did want to note, Becca Myers, the school director, and Josh can share on this a little bit, but Becca Meyer is our director at the high school, and she had another thing she was doing with the school tonight, and so Josh is the associate director is here. And Josh, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so Becca is actually serving as an advisor for a short period of time during maternity leave, excuse me. So she is in parent-teacher conferences. So I think it's great to have our principal doing that. I'm not sure if you're the student where your advisor is also the principal, if you feel the same way, but she's doing those this afternoon. So that is why she's not here, and I'm happy to be here in her place.
Excellent. So last time, I think maybe Scott, you were there. Casey, I'm not sure who was on this call. Casey, were you with us last time or no? Okay. But the way school accountability committee meetings are set up, and we did our introductions. But really the purpose of these is to ensure that, parents and teachers and community, have a voice in kind of the school and understand our priorities and our successes. It's a way of us to be accountable and to provide opportunities for people to come and hear about the current progress of the school. It's a way for us to update this team, which includes people who have, kind of shared with us that they regularly want to be a part of these meetings, or for any member who on any given occasion decides to join, to know what the areas of improvement are related to academic data and instruction, as well as the culture at Montview. And then I'm going to let this Penny in here. And really to help us plan for the future based on input and ideas shared by this group. And so we are going to go, and Josh and I will share a little bit on kind of some school level data overview. We only met just a little bit over a month ago, and so some of that is slightly different, some of it is very similar, and but we do want to share on that, and then use that to really talk about what is happening in terms of what we're working on at the school now, that we are what's happening at the school now that we're kind of starting the second trimester, and what's the work we're doing there, and then really to open it up to question and answer, but with such a small group as well. If you at any point would like to ask questions about specific things we're talking about, please do so. Feel free to use the hand raise function or type in the chat or just get on the mic, and we're happy to kind of slow down and answer any questions in the moment. But at the end, certainly we'll take a lot of time for that as well. I noticed we did have a few other people join us, and we just did a round of introduction, but wondering if anyone who just joined us wouldn't mind kind of getting on the mic and just sharing who they are and what grade your kid's in, and anything else you'd like to share about how you associate with the Montview community.
Hi there, this is Elise Skirmish. I have a 6th grader, and I'm happy to be part of the meeting tonight.
Great. Thanks, Elise, for joining us again. Elise was with us last time as well. And then Penny, I'm not sure if you're there and able to just share a little bit.
I'm sorry, I just joined and had some audio issues.
No worries.
What was the question?
Oh, we were just letting people introduce themselves and maybe what grade their students in.
Okay. My student is Alex Hunter. He's in 6th grade.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that said, Josh and I will continue to go, and got a number of high school and middle school families, which is really exciting for us. And so we want to just kind of update on some current year data and where we stand with that. Going to start with middle school, and then we'll bounce back and forth between middle and high, and want to talk about our attendance to date. Since the last time we've met in early November, middle school data in terms of attendance has improved even more than I think where it was in a pretty solid place before. So we're excited by that. Year to date is, in between a 93 and 94% daily attendance. And that's not just students arriving to like their first period and then counting that for attendance for the day, but actually the total number of all classes, and did kids attend all of those classes throughout the day. And it's the same measure that the high school will use as well. So it's a pretty rigorous measure that really indicates that a large number of our kids are attending and being part of all of their classes. We ended trimester 1 at 93.5%. We're slightly down here to start trimester 2, so we're aware of that and hoping that will improve as we kind of round out December here. Just want to note, you can look at our grade level breakdown as well. Our lowest area right now, we've seen significant improvement with our 7th grade attendance. It's actually improved over a percentage in the last month. Our 8th grade continues to be among our lowest, and we're working actively on our plans to support 8th grade and 8th grade students with that. And I think that's a little bit of a trend we see. I think when you look at the high school, you'll see a trend that goes in the opposite direction. Our 9th and 10th graders are a bit lower, and the 11th, 12th graders improving that, which is interesting. Looking at it by ethnicity, we can see some variations. Nothing that is terribly stands up for us. We do notice, that our white students are slightly higher in their attendance, and we're always asking ourselves, why might that be? What are there barriers we're creating for students of other ethnicities or backgrounds? Like I said, the percentage isn't too far off, but it is something we're pretty mindful of, and data that we look at consistently to notice how kids from different backgrounds and subgroups are experiencing school. And then in other areas, students with disabilities, that is a big concern for us, as that's at a little bit less than 90% up since the last time we spoke. However, some of that has to do, I think, with students of ours who are in our center program, and how their attendance is taken, but we are still very aware of that. I think as we particularly begin to continue to think about what, strong special education support looks for like students in this new remote environment. And then for our multi-language learners, those who maybe English is a secondary language for, there's 2 designations. NEP is for, our students who are the least proficient in English, who are maybe, lack a lot of fluency in English, and that's a small number of 13 kids, but can see that number, the 83%, is much lower for them. And I think how we think about engaging our kids who you are not native English speakers and who are really in the beginning stages of their development there is a key thing that we're working on, thinking about how to engage those students and quite often their families as well. I'll turn it to Josh here to talk about the high school attendance.
Thanks, John. So yeah, John did a good job explaining the way in which we derive these attendance numbers, of which you can see on the left. These numbers have stayed relatively static throughout the course of the year. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been a slight dip, and pretty consistently our 11th and 12th graders have been slightly above where our 10th and 9th graders have been in terms of their daily attendance. In the center, you can see the category broken down by ethnicity. Similar comments to what John would say as well. Certainly looking at the roots of engagement or disengagement and working to understand the barriers that certain students are facing. And similarly with students with exceptionalities or students with disabilities is certainly a very concerning category, both within our high school, within the network at large, and frankly, the national conversation. So a lot of work being done both in supporting engagement, thinking critically about grading practices, restructuring our schedule a bit, which we'll get to in a little bit in this meeting, in ways to support students who need additional support. So I certainly open to questions when the time is right, but I think the data here is what it is. John, you're on mute.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I think we'll dig into this data here on the student wellness and what we're learning there, and then we'd love to pause to just see if folks have questions or thoughts on the data that they'd like to share. As then we'll get into some more academic data that just want to have like a break in between. Last time, we mentioned that one of the efforts as a network that we've done is to really continually know, the wellness or the mental kind of state of our students. And we have 4 key questions that we've been asking periodically throughout the year to our students to learn a little bit more about their engagement with different folks in the school, as well as kind of the whole school community. And you can see the 4 questions here that I'll run through. What I've done here is kind of given that beginning of the year metric and where our students fell at the beginning of the year, and then where they were in our most recent survey that we gave in November. We are actually doing it again this week, but that data wasn't finalized, so unfortunately I couldn't share that today. But the way that these questions are asked is there isn't, like, for example, there is an adult at my school I trust and can go to for help, and there's 5, they can either strongly disagree, be neutral, agree, or strongly agree. And so the percentages you're looking at are the percentages of students who either agreed or strongly agreed on these. So any student who put neutral or below would be not included in this percentage. And so the first one is the trust in an adult. For us at the middle school, we started in the low 70s at the beginning of the year. And that makes some sense given that the kids still are yet to meet and know their teachers and other adults. That has increased 10% since into mid-November. I'm not sure where that was with this week's survey, but up to above 80%, 81% at this time. Then we had asked a very different question, or a different question, which is still about an adult, but specific to the advisor, because we're trying to learn a little bit more about how productive and helpful that advisor to student relationship is specifically, not just that, hey, find some adult, but really in the way that we use advisors, we really want that to be a key relationship. That's been pretty steady throughout the year. It's hovered in that mid 80s nearly on every survey. You know, we can see from the first week till mid-November, it dropped about 2%, but it's pretty consistently been about 85% of students saying that that they have a trusting and good relationship with their advisor. And then the next two, and I'm going to talk about these later because I think these are two big key pieces of data that for us at the middle school are problems we're trying to attack. Are questions related to my friendships with students within the school building and feeling connected and valued by the school community as a whole. We can see that since the beginning of the year, that number for kind of the student friendship, student relationship piece has actually dropped about 6%. And the part about feeling connected to the school community has remained pretty flat, around 60%. And you can see a slight increase between the two surveys, but nothing significant. And so as we put together kind of our second half of the year try two plans, we've really kind of leaned into this as a problem to solve, and going to share a little bit on that later, some things we're thinking and have put into place as well. And so Josh, I'll turn it to you for the high school.
Thanks, John. Yep. Again, John's given the same context and information. There's no changes to the process in which we get this information from the high school students as far as what questions are asked and through what medium. We have seen some good growth, I think, in most of these areas over the course of the last several months, even in just the last even in a short period of time. We actually gave one today. We have not finalized the results yet, but we'll hopefully be able to share those in our next meeting here. But yeah, there's an adult that we can that our students' trust has gone up a bit. We've really focused on this data with our advisors and teachers and thinking about ways in which the instructional methods can increase connection with students and staff. Plus, we also utilize a method in which all advisors every 2 weeks seek to meet one-on-one with every advisee, which both supports the first and second data points, which is the connection with advisor, and in some cases that's direct overlap with number one. In cases where our team looks at their data as an advisor and sees a potentially neutral or even disagree statement, we say, okay, well, one, what can we as an advisor do to connect with that student, and in the meantime, who else on our team might connect with that student? So spending a lot of time on that. Slight increase over the last in the last month when we gave these two different surveys. And that data, if you were to even move further back with like early October, late September, would also represent an increase as well. Strong friendships, definitely a place that I'll talk about some of the methods we're seeking to engage students in. It's just hard. I have two students of my own kids, one of whom is in second grade, and they had the chance to be in school, and that's where the friendships were built. And in the last 2 weeks being home, it's been hard for him to kind of continue that. So seeing it on all sides, you see it, I know, at home with your own students and your own children, but definitely something that we're not just throwing our shoulders up and saying, what are we going to do? So we'll share a little bit later some ideas we have and some of the work we've been trying to do there, and then connected to school. Valued by school community. Although it's increased, that is absolutely a place of focus, and I think it just represents one of the major barriers right now just to the learning experience in a virtual setting anywhere, and certainly within our own school. Yeah, what John will share, I'm sure we'll share are some shared strategies, and your input and ideas would be helpful here as well. Thanks. You're still on mute. I'll say John's next and unmute, please.
That would help. We're going to pause there because next we're going to just slip into some academic data. Before then, we kind of get into our priorities heading into the second half of the year. But just want to take any questions or wonderings or thoughts for the group. All right, great. Again, at any point that you want to interrupt or just ask questions, there's no reason to wait till the end, but there will be time at the end as well. But we'll continue on if there's no questions at this point.
And John, just
yeah.
Two that we could, if you don't use Teams often, there's also a function where you can raise this hand. It says raise hand, and we'll see it. and we can pause then, or you should have access to the chat as well, which is that little text box. So feel free to type in questions as well, and we can utilize that method to get questions in the meantime.
Absolutely. So I want to dip into some just academic data with our school. I'm repeating a little bit from the last time because I just wanted to share where data was related to iReady, because we're actually starting our second round of iReady here in next week. So I just want to, this is a little repetitive from last time, but I did want to share it again. One of the things that I would just like to note, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is as we just learned a lot about how our kids are learning and the pace at which classes are going and how to support, that we've really thought about is how to really think about the content we're prioritizing, how that impacts pacing and allows for students to dig deeper on fewer things rather than, getting shallower on a whole lot of standards, or the number of standards we might be able to feel like we could cover in a, in an in-person learning. So that is just to note that I think because of that, we've shifted some things around in our assessment calendars. And for example, iReady, the second round of it, was originally designed to be in January, but we've moved that up to December so that we can move another assessment called the ANET assessment, which is more aligned with kind of our course calendar and our curriculum calendar, to take place at the end of January as well. And so that's why you see that shift. Don't want to belabor the iReady stuff because I did share on this last time, but iReady is a nationally normed test that is for reading and math, and is really about helping us to see general skills, where kids are in their general skills, whether it's, we can see anything from phonological awareness to comprehension to some elements of analysis in reading, for example. In math, we can see everything from, basic algebraic items to geometry, and we can actually see those strands. And the test, because we give it 3 times a year, allows us to see growth of students throughout the year. So we're really excited for next week's assessment, because we think that's going to really help us to see what type of growth we've seen in the last few months. Ms. Kermish, go for it.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask if the school staff is sharing the data amongst different core curriculum courses. So like, is this data staying only with literacy and math teachers, or is it also being shared with social studies and science, for example? I know that that's a topic that I brought up with my students advisor today, was that that they're struggling right now in social studies, in that, the literacy reading level for the content is not nearly as acutely aware, I think, to the teacher compared to the different reading levels of the students. And so my student in particular, who has had a consistent reading challenge, is really feeling very challenged by the fact that the reading content is so much above his skill level, and then that the questions are much more complex. Whereas in literacy, the topics that are talked about and read about seem to be more things that my student has life experience around, so he has some other skills that he can apply to sort of do context clues and such. But I was wondering if the other teachers are getting sort of the broad strokes of information to be able to maybe scaffold some of that information to the broader student community.
Yeah, we did, after the first round of the assessments, we did do, so the math and reading teachers gave the assessments, so they got some of the training earlier on. But about 2 weeks after the initial round of tests, I met with all of our social studies and all of our other teachers, particularly science and social studies, to share with them how to access iReady and pull that data. And what iReady does is allows you to see individual students and see them by like the threads that I spoke about, whether it's in math or in reading. But there's also a tool that allows them to see instructional groupings. So there's like 5 groups of kids, kind of from advanced to proficient down to behind grade level. And the tool actually will create groupings for you based on where students might be. So I did show that to them, how well the follow-up was on teachers through their coaching meetings and so on, how well they're using that as an indicator for how to support kids and differentiate for them could be an area for growth. But they do have access to the tool as well. Is that any other questions on that? And we'll continue, especially after the second round, to ensure that we're using it to, support how we're thinking about differentiating work and so on as well. So this is, like I said, this is from September. And so I just want to briefly go through it, and we'll have new data coming out here that we'll probably share through messaging with our families, but certainly in the next accountability committee meeting. These are all median percentiles, just to note. And I am pointing out here kind of 1920 measures versus 2021. I think given the pandemic and the nature of the spring plus remote learning, at the very beginning of the year, it points to loss of learning that kids had, and we just want to name that. This is seen kind of across the board as well. So 6th grade, our median percentile, remembering like 50th percentile is kind of that average range. But in 1920, students were coming in the 39th percentile. But in 2021, they were, and this is in math, they came in 34th percentile, so behind what previous 6th graders had come in. 7th grade, it was 48th the year before and 43rd this year. To note, the one extra thing to note is that group, though, did come in still 4 percentile ahead of where they came at the beginning of 6th grade. So in 6th grade, they came in at the 39th percentile, but now we're at the 43rd. So we did see some growth from 6th to 7th grade. And in 8th grade, this year's 8th graders are coming in about 4 percentile behind previous 8th grades, but 2 percentile above where they started last year. So we are seeing some increase year to year, but where they're coming in compared to other grade levels was behind. And we see similar to that in the reading scores here. This year's 6th graders actually came in 8 percentile points behind last year's. The 7th graders 5 percentile behind, and actually came in 4 percentile behind where they started in 6th grade. So that's certainly a flag for us with our reading, because not only did we see decrease compared to other 7th graders, but even within themselves. And similarly, in 8th grade, down 5 percentile compared to previous year's 8th graders, and 2 percentile behind where they started the previous year. And so we do have started a new reading curriculum this year, and certainly are going to monitor that. Our associate director for instruction and myself have really paid close attention to our reading instruction as we've adopted that new curriculum as well. My last piece here before I turn it to Josh, I did want to share a little bit on our ANET assessment. ANET is a test we give in reading and math, and we gave this in October. It is more aligned, like I said, to our course calendar, so it fits in within the curriculum we teach. So teachers backwards plan from this assessment. It's similar to like a high school final exam, for example. And so that's how it's different than iReady. It really aligns with the time of the year and the curriculum that's been taught up to that point. And I want to share a little bit about the data and just give you an indication of where we're seeing kids at after that first round. We look at this test in terms of the percentages it gives us a little bit different. It's not like, kids performing above a 70% or passing, because the test is designed a little bit different. And an example of this is on the SAT, a college-ready score for a student might actually be them only getting 55% of the questions correct, right? Because it's quite a range to kind of indicate college-ready versus, advanced scores, and then scores that fall below that. And these are similar. So these are assessments where getting a score of 50 or 55% could still indicate progress towards proficiency, even though for most of us who think about grades in terms of a grade book, that seems relatively low. That's why we curve these tests before they go into grade books, for example. They get a curve. And the other thing I want to note here is that one thing we're really looking at closely as a network is students who fall below a 30% on this test. It's a deep indication that they might need some strong foundational work, a lot more differentiation, a lot more scaffolding, deeper supports. Students above 60%, it would seem to indicate that they're on track for progressing towards proficiency, as we would see it based on state tests like CMAS. And then anywhere in between that, is, we're hoping to help see them kind of progress towards that 60% and increase there as well. And so it's a rough measure, but something I felt like was important to share rather than just sharing the overall average. You can see here going across the top for ELA 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, and then we have Math 6, Math 7th, and Math 8. I do want to notice that for 8th grade, this isn't our whole 8th grade class. It's only the kids in Math 8. It does not include our advanced math students in 8th grade. So there's about 65 kids who would not be part of this measure as well. So starting with ELA, what you can see is that in 6th grade, we have the largest number of students who fell below 30%, and that tapers off for our students as they've reached 8th grade. 38% in 7th and then 30% in 8th grade. And as well, and this makes some sense, the least amount in 6th grade who reached that 60% threshold. And then, in 7th grade, that's up to 34% and 32% in 8th grade. So number one, I think a lot of that just has to do with the newness of these assessment. Newness of middle school and everything about DSST for our 6th graders. And then you add to that the nature of remote learning and the challenges of that, and the fact that often our 6th graders come in slightly behind, the progress that we see our 7th and 8th graders make. In math, I do want to point out, you'll see a drop from our 8th grade, but as a reminder, a significant portion of our advanced students are not part of this metric, so that would be a reason for the drop. But again, the percent of kids below 30 in 6th grade is nearly 50%, down to 38% in 7th grade, and then back up in 8th grade as well. And those above 60%, only 16% in 6th grade and 24% in 7th. So, numbers, we are looking to see how those shift, and that we'll pay attention to as kids take their 2nd and 3rd rounds in January and then in the spring. But do want to just kind of showcase how we see kids kind of progress who've been with the school for a bit of time. And yet we are looking at this to really see which kids need some strong foundational support as well. I'll turn it to Josh to hit on the high school stuff.
Thanks, John. We'll keep this relatively big picture today and really just zoom in on GPA. We can certainly answer some individual questions that may exist for final exams, but we do not have the same standardized data that John was looking at, or the same testing program right now. So what we're looking at here are GPAs, which we do believe can be a good indicator of a few things. One, of course, just what are their grades, but also thinking about the importance of GPAs has been a big focus in our high school the last couple of years, both in terms of just within the high school, the importance of seeing an improvement here with integrity, reliability, and validity, not just inflation, but also because a couple of facts are true. One, students' GPAs as 9th graders tend to change very little over the 4 years they persist through high school. And so really that's a statistic not within DSST, but nationally, and that's a really important statistic to make sure we're focused on as a team. And also, because we know GPA matters in terms of competitive processes when it comes to applying for colleges. So that being said, you can look on the left to see our current student GPAs at the end of trimester 1, and on the right is the average GPA for students in the previous school year. So the numbers are what you see here. It is good to see, with the exception of a slight difference in 10th grade, a general increase of GPAs by grade, which is the hope, right? We are developing students over the course of 4 years to continue to find success in school and grow and learn how to not just learn how to be successful in terms of many things, but in this case, grades. You can see in the right side the grades that students' GPAs were the previous year. So one way to look at that would be to see students, if you were to look at grade 9, 1920, the top right column, it's a 2.46. That same cohort of students this year is coming in with a 2.59. So it represents growth from last year to this year. And you can chart 2.78 for last year's 10th graders, this year's 11th graders, who are now currently at a 2.94. So we are seeing growth across our students from year over year within each cohort. So I'll pause there and open that up either for questions, comments, or just continuing to move forward. And if so, John, please unmute.
Josh, did you want to talk about the college acceptance stuff, or did you want
Oh
to do
yeah,
that?
that slide was here too. So John, you did not have to unmute yet, but you did because you need to remind me of this. Yeah, so some exciting news coming in with high schools. We do have currently an average of 5 applications submitted per senior, which is our target goal. 74% of students have completed their FAFSA, which the deadline is coming up, and that still is on track. And then even in the very first phases of this year, with early admission windows really just starting to share their decisions, 57% of seniors have at least one college acceptance as of today. Emory acceptance this week from one of our high school seniors, fantastic. And we have a Questbridge scholar who has received a full scholarship to Vassar University. So some pretty cool stuff coming out. Our students are anxious, antsy, amped up, ready to kind of, the momentum is happening right now, and they're getting, in some cases, great celebrations, in some cases, some patience without results, and in some cases, like any year, students not getting what they wanted quite yet. But we have a fantastic college team this year with Miss Gibbs, Miss Clark, and Miss Mendoza, who's a new addition to our college team this year. She is actually an alumna of GVR and is doing great work for our students as well. So those two pieces of data we wanted to share. I think that's it. And if so, John, you're up and you can unmute.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to share just too about middle school grade books. I'll be quicker. Our GPA is very different how we look at that than high school and its importance in the high school. But just want to know, because of some strategies we put in place for how we think about grades them, our Fs from last year to this year, which is what I'm about to say is not typical of schools, I think, because of the nature of the pandemic, but our F rate is actually down across grades and across subgroups of students too. So we're happy to kind of get that under control, as that's been something we've been wanting to work on in recent years and had much more success with that in Tri-1. So next, Josh and I will just talk about what this is leading us to think through when it comes to current priorities, but I do want to pause and see if there's more questions. So Sharnetta, go for it.
Just wondering if it included the, again, AP or honor courses, or how they weigh into that GPA average for high school.
Yeah, thanks, Renetta. Yeah, so those GPAs would be calculated with the weighting for honors in AP courses. Offhand, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it's, I think, 0.2 for honors and 0.4 for AP. So those GPAs would represent the weighting. I'm 99% sure on that. I can verify here momentarily.
Okay, thank you.
All right, as always, if there are questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll jump to them as soon as we see them. But we'll both share a little bit on kind of current priorities, and then that'll draw us to the end where we have time for further Q&A and other discussion points. So, middle school, as we've entered into Tri-2, and I would say really, in some ways it's about the second half of the year, not just for Tri-2. I want to talk about two kind of key areas that we're using this information and data to really drive at some key focuses for us in the second half of the year here. So as far as our academics, I mentioned or alluded to this earlier, and this is both a network priority as well as our school priority, is just on the idea of content prioritization. And when I say that, I mean, a teacher in teaching their content, we recognize that both the nature, I think, of online learning as well as both in terms of like kids' ability to engage on screen for a while, as well as, how much you just lose a lot by not having in-person teaching, right? And so we're really trying to focus in on, let's not try to hit all the same standards that we do every year, but really prioritize the most important ones for kids to take away from this experience, to give them at least enough of a leg up in the future to continue to close gaps that we might see persist because of the pandemic. And so this does include adjusting the content pace in some spots and perhaps its focus, based in standards. This might mean the ability to slow down, and I don't mean necessarily like of tedium, but just to slow down, and go deeper on a standard, or go deeper in an understanding of the content that's being taught, in the hopes also of increasing engagement, because there's not the pressure to feel like we're rushing through content and we just have to get it done and tell the kids, but actually get them to work with the content at a deeper level, build more discussion protocols and furthering like their engagement in it as well. And I spoke to the why a little bit earlier, but if we want to not exacerbate inequities and gaps in the future for our students, hitting on the essential standards now and nailing those and doing them well will, we believe, support them going forward. As a school, that's really led us to doing some really important work around strengthening our planning as well as our response to data. And I believe our teachers, on the whole, have done really well with the remote learning of trying to find different ways through technology and their own styles to create engaging lessons. And so I'm not necessarily saying like, are our teachers prepared for class every day? They are. And I think they try to find unique ways to engage students in the learning as well. But to really think about deeper about how standards and the right standards are aligning over time, and that we stop to ensure that students are really mastering that standard or content through our analysis of data before we simply move on. Our teachers are very ambitious, and when we said at the beginning of the year that, hey, we're gonna accomplish as much as we in this year as we do any year, they took that to heart. At times, though, what we realized is that maybe prevented them from pausing when they needed to understand when our students weren't fully grasping a concept, to slow down and hit on that well. And so I think both as a network priority and a school-based one, that will help kind of the pacing for our teachers, but our students as well. When in our second area here around culture, I spoke to the data earlier that really, points to the student relationship and kind of the connection to the Knight community that our students feel. We are really driving hard at improving that data, and I want to share a few strategies here. Number one is really finding as many ways as we can to help our kids through those engagement opportunities. And this past week, we started our virtual club offerings, which if you go to our website of the middle school, you'll be able to see what those are. This week, we have started with a cooking club, some art and animation, a fitness club, an emotional wellness club, a game design club, and a creative writing club. And then there's another list of some things that are going to be upcoming here in the future, within the next few weeks or in January. And so we've been really excited to roll those out to help our kids to be part of that. And we hope that one of the things that will help for our students is just to connect with kids around common interests. The only way they were connecting up until this point was through advisory and in classes. And it's still virtual, and we know the limitations of that. But if you can engage with kids over a common interest in cooking, or to learn about emotional wellness together, or whatever it might be, we just hope that expands kind of their network of folks and kids within the building that they get a chance to know around a common interest, especially. Student leadership is going to have an anchoring point in our school as well. We recently had kids apply to run for offices on our student council, and next Wednesday students will be doing their speeches and voting for that to really help our student council launch in January, and we're really pumped about that. And the other thing we've been doing is really increasing our efforts around our positive behavior intervention systems, or what is short for that is PBIS. Our advisors have been working really hard at this for our middle school families. If you read our weekly flyer messages, we always put our morning meetings in there, and our deans run the Friday morning message where they share celebrations of students, shout outs, and other things. And so, each month they're doing an advisory of the month where they recognize an advisory that's gone above and beyond in some way. And each month we have started doing kind of specific student rewards and recognition by month. And for the month of November, that was for attendance, engagement, and participation. And so if you've watched that video, you'll see all the students that we celebrated. This is an example of 6th grade, and it might be hard to see, I apologize, but it was a listing of all their names, and it was read at morning meeting. These are all the 7th graders, whether it was because they were 100% in attendance for the month or doing their pair deck 100% of the time. They were recognized, and we actually, provided them we told them this ahead of time, but a $5 Amazon gift card to kind of incentivize that a little bit more and to let them know we're going that extra mile to celebrate them. You can see here the advisory of the month shout out from our deans. And then this month, the focus is really on doing your best. And for December, it's going to come through advisors nominating an advisee who's really showing those core values, and engaging in a variety of ways. And so we've really tried to up, in terms of that connection to community, I think having like central focuses each month for kids to focus on, and then making sure we celebrate them at the end of it to help them see that as well. And do think that student leadership and clubs will also help develop the student to student piece as well as the student to community piece. And I'll turn it back over to Josh with things that are happening at the high school.
Thanks, John. So a couple of adjustments we're making. There's a lot going on, but we try to keep this relatively big picture here. Is we're in the process of rethinking our Wednesday schedule, and our seniors just began this past week as kind of a quote-unquote pilot, although we've discussed this with our whole team, and we'll firm up our plans for the beginning of January, when we would start this with all grades. So what that looks like is we have a lot of feedback. We've had a series of schedule working groups from staff, just recently initiated that with students, have hosted a couple of internal to Montview only schedule feedback sessions from students, have solicited some of that feedback from our staff, a lot of our feedback from staff, and a couple of common strands that we're trying to solve for. And frankly, we can't solve for everything right now, but one of those is the need to get a little bit more time with certain students who might be falling behind. So Wednesdays are going to shift towards a model in which we won't have any new classes. In fact, we won't be hosting classes on Wednesday. Instead, we're going to have a morning in which we have mandatory small groups for certain subjects that teachers, a variety of teachers, will be leaning in to support. And then students will start the day, every student with still an advisory. Prep Academy will have a certain program Wednesday mornings, and right after that is when they'll break off into smaller groups, 8 to 10 students per subject or per teacher, so it can be really focused. And then the afternoon being devoted to some time for students who might just need extra support with missing work, having an opportunity to catch up through that. So that is one pivot we're making. We've also been working on the same focus as John said, depth over breadth, slow the pace down, try to create a little bit more time to just, we know things move slower online. And slower, I don't think should be equated with worse or less than. I think it just means that there's more opportunities to get deeper and kind of honestly reframe and rethink some of the ways in which we are moving our pace forward. So that's a big change coming down the pipeline. And we've also been thinking about ways to support students with our homework, getting clear with our team about what is and what is not within kind of the parameters and guidelines, and really working hard to dial back as much as we can, because we know screen time is a challenge. We definitely are focused on GPAs, as talked about before, professional development around grading practices, thinking about how grades are allocated in the grade book, weighting, looking at how formatives are done is our next push, because formative assessments carry a lot of weight, and we recognize some room for growth in that strategy, in that category of our grade books. Thinking big picture, like what are the best practices that do and don't work in virtual learning? Thinking of ways to truly engage students, and it's a hard year, right? In some ways, a lot of what we're doing is we're all first-year administrators, we're all first-year teachers in some ways. Obviously, we have a depth of experience on our team at the high school. Many of our staff are in the decades, a decade plus of experience, but we're doing things for the first time. So we're all adjusting. We're trying to rapidly iterate and trying to just incorporate the best practices and fail fast and fail forward, so we can continue to get the best practices in front of our students. Intentional culture development, we've recognized too that our 10th graders have really only experienced, as Ms. Lewis would know, have only experienced roughly 7 weeks or 7 months of high school in a building, and our freshmen have experienced none of that. And so really thinking about intentional ways to create what I hope you have, as parents, sent your students to the high school for, which is part of that is a strong culture of community, learning with one another, support, and trying to find ways to still build that. And that's kind of our next pivot within culture for the second half of this year. And then student connection and involvement strategies. You saw the data earlier. That is definitely one of our concerns. And Sig Arneson, who is our AP US history teacher, who is last year, if you were here, recall, served as our acting dean of students for a good portion of the school year. He is overseeing a big student engagement initiative through our extracurriculars and student programming, working really hard to create a student union website that is a centralized hub for information, for ways that students can find what clubs are happening, trying to work on strategies to get students to join these clubs, because we do know that's a way to really build connection. We've been in the midst of a focus for Clubvember, which is an incentive to get the most new members per club. And club leaders have been working hard to get more recruitment and just a general push for getting involved, recognizing high school is at its best when it's not just about classes, but it's about getting into clubs, organizations, building relationships outside the context of a classroom. Thank you. John, you're on mute. I forgot to prompt you to unmute.
I'm so bad. I'm so sorry. That's 3 times. I never do that. Just that's the end of our presentation in terms of the data and where we're at in terms of planning for the second half of the year. But I do want to take a minute just to share a little bit on, as much as I have on return to school and where we're at in that process. You've all hopefully received communication from our network and Bill Kurtz about this. And as we always said, we would come back in January and kind of reassess where we were. Certainly DPS announced a little bit more of a formal plan of what they're intending recently. And at this point, our plan as a network is to continue strong with what we're doing right now and reassess at the beginning of January by taking into, opportunities to connect with families in our community, as well as to kind of see what the nature of the pandemic actually is in January versus deciding that now here in the early December. I do not believe that we would start a return. I know DPS mentioned for secondary schools as early as the 19th. I do not believe based on that we would start then, but certainly a lot more to come in early January. I also think DPS's was pretty ahead of the game in terms of where things are, and assumes a lot of things that will occur between now and then. Certainly happy to answer questions on that, but right now we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, and to get more communication and input from folks in early January before just jumping to a decision right now, when we just feel like that might be a little too quick. So, but outside of that, happy to take any questions. Ms. Lewis, I saw you had your hand up, so if you have something, happy to answer.
Yeah, you actually just answered the question about the returning to school in January plan.
Yeah.
And then I just wonder, Josh, as far as the high school goes, what they're doing for the high school students for recognition, and just, I know there's an award ceremony coming up, I think maybe in a couple of weeks, but outside of that, just kind of, the students who are logging in daily and participating, and just what recognition, those students are receiving.
Yeah, great question. Quick update. So the GPA, I just was exploring that. The GPA data I shared with you was actually unweighted. So
Okay.
You can see the data in Infinite Campus. That will give you a weighted and unweighted option. What we pulled is from a different platform that doesn't show that as weighted. So once we weight it, those numbers will actually go up, especially for our juniors and seniors, of which there's honors and AP courses, and two sophomore courses, AP Chem and Honors Chem. So got that cleared up. Thank you for seeking clarity on that. So yes, we do have award ceremonies happening next Wednesday, our kind of annual or trimesterly award ceremonies happening next Wednesday at noon. So we'll be sending out invites on Monday with flyer, so you can join those as families. And then every other week, other than the last couple weeks between end of trimester things and break, every other week we've been doing core value awards at our Friday morning meetings. So students are being recognized by their teachers through both nominations and award winners every other week. And we do a short recorded ceremony where teachers and myself, Ms. Hunt, jump on a call record it, and then celebrate anywhere between 20 and 30 students for their work through the core values. And so we've really tried to prioritize that as a place to acknowledge, like, hey, there's a lot going on, but we still see you. So those are the two primary methods of celebration we've been utilizing at the school-wide or culture level. Within classrooms, I don't have all of those answers. I know teachers have been doing some different things to kind of highlight student success through some teachers use Class Dojo and things like that, but systematically those two first things I shared would be the best answer I have.
All right, thank you.
Elise?
Hi, I actually have 3 items that I wanted to just touch on real quick. The first one is just actually a small request, which is that this week we got sent a request on Flyer to fill out a survey.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if it's been thought through well, in that if I click on the link in Flyer, which I can only access on my phone, I then have to like use my thumbs to try and type out responses, which is really frustrating and really uncomfortable and not a free flowing opportunity to provide feedback. So my request would be is if you're sending out surveys or something that requests parents to provide more than sort of yes, no, or short answers, that you consider sending it in an email where people can then click on that link through their computer and make that process a little bit fun. The other request that I had, which I brought this up with my students in his teacher conference today, we started the new trimester, and so we are in a new special. And it would be really awesome, I think, if the specials teachers in general could maybe create just sort of a standard, welcome to trimester 2. I'm your arts or drama or PE teacher. Here are the things that we're planning to cover in that course this trimester. Here's how to reach me. And here's kind of what the basic expectations of that class is. Like my student is in PE this trimester, and I have absolutely no idea what they're doing in PE. Yeah. And like if my student's supposed to be exercising, for example, each day, like I would have no idea that that's an expectation, and he's definitely not doing it. But if I know what that expectation is, then I can definitely help make sure to sort of keep him accountable to that. Great. The last thing that I wanted to ask was, I haven't really heard much about family engagement, like inter-family engagement. So being able to have some sort of methodology for getting to know other families in, for example, 6th grade. I know we touched upon this a little bit in the last meeting, but I would still really like to see something that allows a function for, me to be able to reach out to, even if it's just the other families of students who are in my child's advisory, to be able to sort of create a sense of community, or, host a family, trivia Kahoot night or something that, just gives people an opportunity, if they want to really connect. And I think model a piece that I think is really important. One of the reasons that we chose the school was because of the level of diversity that's available. And still so far, into trimester 2, my child does not have a single friend who doesn't look almost identical to him right now, that he identifies with. So, that to me gives me an opportunity as a parent who values that, to be able to model that behavior to him, if I'm able to reach out to other families and try and help show that, I want to embrace getting to know other families who don't look like me, celebrate the same things as we do, eat the same kinds of foods we do, speak the same languages that we do, that, those are values that are important to us, because having more of those things brings a wider depth of everything really into your life. And so, you should try and find ways to seek that out. And I just don't see that, at least so far, being very encouraged. And I think that there's the possibility for the family interaction to have some more of that encouragement and modeling.
Yeah, really 3 great things there. I appreciate that. I know we mentioned last time the directory is one, and I'm meeting with Shelby Johnson, who's our network, kind of in family engagement and communications support. And that's one of the things on our list is like, how do we get that rolling? That's something that she's been working with us on. So I hope a directory can be something we can accomplish this year. I think that was a great push last time, and we've not made adequate progress on that. And then I would say, to the point too about family-to-family connection has to be our next big step. I think that just has to be a big thing that comes out of this meeting and in January. We've just fallen short, I think, in our work with FAM at this point, and just like trying to help to kickstart that in the virtual space, and it can be done. I think there's good opportunities as we learn for folks to connect virtually, and so I appreciate the push, and certainly something I'll lean into and work with Becca and Josh on as well. And then at least just quick, when you were talking about the electives teacher, you were originally I thought you meant that them introducing themselves to the students, but you're actually asking, for them to, something that you have in writing from them about their course and what you can anticipate for the trimester. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just don't know,
Yeah.
like maybe my student does, but I don't know what the expectations are for the course. And just since, it's changing each trimester, I don't have a relationship with that teacher so far. And like right now, I don't even know what that teacher's name is. So I think it would just be a nice touch point. And I don't think that it has to be specific to each class at all, but, it could just be a broad, 1-page something that says, here's sort of what to expect in the class for the trimester.
Just a quick question on that. Just wondering if, for example, if I asked them each to kind of put, something in writing that says those things, and then we, included it in one of our Tuesday flyer messages, so you could, each grade level could read their new teacher for the trimester and what to expect from that class. Would that be sufficient, or do you feel it should come through some other mode?
I mean, I think it would be okay. I'll be honest, I've been struggling to get used to using Flyer. I mean, it doesn't, like the notification is just a tiny little number that pops up beside the app icon. So, I mean, if I don't remember to look, then I don't always see that there's a new flyer announcement. Whereas my email, I mean, it's my to-do list. So.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is Scott. So I had, like you were talking about engagement, and I think that's important, especially, as the kids are at home. I do recall seeing that announcement about Clubvember. I think I only saw one announcement of it, and I don't know if I just didn't follow up on it or what. And then also there was some opportunities for students to take the additional bonus classes that didn't count, towards their GPAs, and I do recall seeing some pretty clear communication about that at the beginning of the year. And with a lot of this, either the, that additional class or clubs, I think sometimes it just takes like a nudge, whether it's a parent nudging their kid, because sometimes if the kids, some kids are very, well, even adults too. Sometimes we just need a little nudge to join a group or volunteer for a volunteer or whatever it may be. So, and again, I just don't know if I missed some of these communications or maybe just didn't see it. But like, for example, the bonus class at the beginning of the year, I think the communications for that were clear. And I was able to kind of nudge my daughter into taking the finance class, and it was like on Wednesdays, and it was pretty good. But when I asked her about it recently, she said, "Oh yeah, we already started those again," and I don't remember saying anything about it. So again, I don't know if it was just my miss on that, and then also some of the clubs too. I guess like I was just looking at that flyer looking at the union, and I was clicking on the link and it doesn't look like it does anything. So so I don't know if, again, sometimes my daughter just needs a nudge to maybe do something or join something. And so, so, well, and as a parent too, I mean, we can nudge, but maybe the, maybe the teachers or, can nudge the kids or, in their,
advisors.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was lost for, maybe the advisors could, do a nudge, just say, hey kids, maybe all of you should, could do one thing, either the extra class or the club, especially like, my daughter used to do sports and all that's been canceled. And it sounds like it's even going to be delayed more back into February. So, she has some extra time at the end of the day that I think she could, join a club, whereas maybe she was doing sports, maybe not. So yeah, maybe the advisors could do a little nudge or encourage kids to join something. And peer pressure too is if their friends join, hey, how about you join too if I do it? So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that.
Great feedback. Literally just met with Becca today and we brought up that idea of the nudge, right? It's taken a few conversations in her advisory to get this one student to join this club. So I work closely with Sig Arneson, and so that's a great push, is like club members, like big picture, but now it's like, how do we individually get that student to sign on to a group that they may not know anyone in and kind of cross that threshold? So great push. And then I think just good feedback in general about making sure that we're bolstering that website and ensuring like students use it. And that would include making sure it's truly usable, like without broken links, and general feedback about consistency of communication, and probably more than one, right? Like that first communication followed by a follow-up and then a nudge. So yeah, great feedback. It's hard for those informal pass you in the hallways, did you join the club today conversations. And so it just calls us to think a little bit differently about how intentional we need to be. So I really appreciate that, and it aligns well with some of our next thoughts.
Yeah, or get creative, like have friends or I hate to say it, like a couple of friends, best friends, have like a push, like best friends join, as a group, as together. Again, I think that kind of peer pressure, positive peer pressure kind of helps. So, I mean, looking back in high school, I mean, I can't, there was a lot of stuff I wouldn't have done had my friends said, come on, Scott, go out and do this, or, I'm going to do it. How about you, etc. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Casey?
Yes, thank you. So I, first of all, I just want to say I can only imagine what you guys are dealing with right now. So my family really does appreciate everything that you're doing to try to make this the best that you can. I did want to say that although it has not been easy, of course, for any of us to be at home and have our kids at home, but I really appreciate you guys making the decision to say it's going to be at least January. And we really noticed just the improvement of online learning once that decision was made. We could see that it was like, you guys were like, okay, we're going to stop fighting this and we're just going to engage and we're going to go with it. And it has really improved our experience. So I really appreciate that. Of course, we would love to be there much more than at home, but so anyway, so I just wanted to make sure and say that. And then my only other thing I would absolutely agree with Elisa is just in regards to some sort of parent connection. Having a 6th grade student, I do not know anyone at all. And so I think, even if it's just to have that one mom that I could call if we were struggling with something, in one of the classes or something like that, just anything, just to at least have somebody. And again, my daughter's advisor is amazing and she's great. And she's kind of has become like that parent because I know that I can reach out to her. But yeah, that would be my one thing that I would say that I think maybe would help even a little bit more. And yeah, I really love that you guys have started the clubs because I agree. At some point, these kids are going to all be in the same building together. And so my thought is, well, we might as well get them as comfortable as we can, seeing each other on camera. So maybe it'll be easier transition also when they finally do get to go to school. So
who's your kid's advisor, Casey?
Yep, Miss Hubert. Sorry.
Yeah, she's great. Okay, great.
She's amazing. Yeah, she's great.
Tell her that she got a compliment. So thank you.
Good. Yeah, you should. She deserves it.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I think that's got to be our next big push in terms of helping families to get the same thing we're trying to accomplish with kids right now. So totally good push, and certainly something I should be accountable for here in the coming couple months. So
Maybe you could give us a club.
there you go. That's well, yeah, that's right.
Because, you know, you don't have anything else to worry about besides getting us parents involved, right?
No,
Here, here.
that's why we exist. That's why we exist as a school, though, is not just, it is for kids, but it's community building. So we got to do better at that. So, yeah. Sorry if you hear my kids and wife just got home, so it could get loud here really fast. So. All right. Well, we really appreciate folks joining us and being part of this evening. The next one of these will be in March. But, you know, certainly we are always around, Josh, myself, Becca, members of my team, to take feedback throughout the year in any form of communication you would like, whether it's to drop out a phone call or an email. We try to be responsive. So please let us, you know, connect with us more. We'll continue not just to share, you know, updates about the progress of our school during these meetings, but in our communications on a regular basis. Just really appreciate your time and your thoughts and your feedback for us. So we hope you have a good night. We'll stay on for a minute if anyone has a question they want to think about. Otherwise, take care and be safe.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
Happy
Yeah.
holidays. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.